Have you ever really stopped to think about how you see color? I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, right? Red is red, blue is blue. But what if I told you that you almost never see a color as it actually is? That's the mind-blowing idea at the heart of Joseph Albers' masterwork, Interaction of Color. It's a book that didn't just change art, it changed how we understand seeing itself. Let's get into it. All right, do a quick exercise with me. Right now, picture the red of a Coca-Cola sign. That iconic, specific red. Really try to nail it down in your mind's eye. You got it? Hold on to it. Okay, so here's the catch. As Joseph Albers himself pointed out, even with a color as famous as Coke Red, if all of us were in a room together, we'd all be imagining slightly different shades. It turns out our memory for color is, well, pretty terrible. We just can't lock in a precise shade. And that's our first clue that our eyes aren't the perfect little cameras we think they are. So if we can't even remember a color accurately, how can we possibly trust what we're seeing right here, right now? Well, Albers' answer was a big, flashing, you can't. And he proved it with this incredibly simple but powerful demonstration he called one color becomes two. This right here, this is the core idea of his entire book. The physical reality of a color, the actual light waves bouncing around, that's one thing. But what our brain perceives, what we actually see, that's a whole other story. Color, as he loved to say, deceives continually. So how did he prove it? Not with some dense academic theory, but with a hands-on exercise. He would take one single piece of colored paper, and just by changing what was around it, he could make it look like two totally different colors. Okay, so look closely at this. On the left, you've got a small square sitting on a dark blue background. And on the right, what looks like another small square, but this one's on a bright yellow background. They look pretty different, don't they? The one on the blue probably seems lighter, maybe even a little bit greenish. And the one on the yellow, it seems darker, kind of brownish. And now for the big reveal. This is a complete illusion. In reality, those two small squares were cut from the exact same piece of paper. They are physically identical. I know it's hard to believe, but go ahead, pause the explainer, and use your fingers to cover up the big blue and yellow backgrounds. You'll see it for yourself. Your eyes are playing tricks on you. So what is going on here? Why does our brain get it so wrong? I mean, it's the same physical object, but we're seeing it in two completely different ways. Well, it's not a mistake. It's actually a fundamental feature of how our vision works. The scientific name for this is simultaneous contrast, and it's all about our biology. You see, when you stare at a color, the cells in your retina that are responsible for seeing that color, they kind of get tired. So to balance things out, your brain starts to see the opposite color. That dark blue background makes your brain push the little square towards its opposite, yellow-orange, so it looks lighter. The bright yellow does the reverse, pushing the square towards a darker purple-blue, making it seem darker. It's a constant push and pull. And this is exactly Albers' point. This isn't something you can just unsee or train your eye to ignore. It's a fact of our physiology. So anyone who claims they can see a color objectively without being influenced by what's next to it, well, they're just fooling themselves. Now, for Albers, this wasn't just some cool party trick. This discovery became the absolute bedrock of his entire teaching philosophy, which he called learning by doing. He basically flipped traditional art school on its head. Instead of starting with boring color wheels and abstract theories, he had his students start with experience. The whole point wasn't to memorize rules, but to actually develop a sensitivity, an eye for color, through trial, error, and just plain discovery. And his favorite tool for this was key. He used colored paper, not paint. You might be wondering why. Well, it was super practical. For one, it got rid of all the time-consuming messy frustration of mixing the perfect shade of paint. It also meant students could use the exact same color over and over again to test how it changed in different contexts. Plus, it was cheap, clean, and there were no distracting brushstrokes. The focus was purely on color. So his whole philosophy really boils down to this. First, practice comes before theory. You have to see the effect for yourself before you can understand why it happens. Second, you learn through playing around, through trial and error, not by following a recipe. And third, the whole goal is to train your eyes to become sensitive to the way colors are constantly shifting and interacting with each other. Now, this whole approach, as you can imagine, had some pretty radical implications. It went way beyond just exercises in a classroom. and challenged the entire concept of color harmony. You see, for centuries, artists were taught these really rigid systems about which colors go together and which ones clash. Albers thought that was nonsense. To him, those were just worn-out rules of thumb. He said good coloring is a lot like good cooking. It depends more on the chef than on the recipe. The goal should always be discovery, not just obedience. And that leads us to his most liberating conclusion of all: forget the rules. Any color can work with any other color. The secret isn't some magic pre-approved combination. The secret is all about quantity. How much of each color are you using? The context, the amount, the relationship, that is everything. So we're left with this really powerful thought. Albers' work teaches us that seeing isn't just a passive thing where our eyes soak up facts. It's an active, creative process. Our perception is this amazing collaboration between the world out there and our own minds. So what if seeing isn't believing? What if it's really an act of imagination, happening constantly, every second of the day? It's a thought that doesn't just change how you look at a painting. It changes how you see absolutely everything.